slap from this distance.
Corner of the world. That's right.
Okay, we're ready to begin. We're up to paragraph number 6, mission number 6. The theme that I want to focus on, although we'll others as well, is the idea of being judgmental or not being judgmental. And this Mishnah begins to transmit the teachings of one very, very prominent rabbi, particularly prominent. Yeshua ben Prachya is prominent because the Talmud describes him as the teacher of a man who is only referred to in Jewish tradition as Oso Ha'ish, that person, whose name was Yeshua, who rebelled against Judaism and is identified by many as the person who started the Christian religion. Although historically, although a lot of the details seem to fit, the Talmud says he had a student called Matthew and Luke and so on, but this Yeshua ben Prachya lived way before the Romans took over. When he was the leader of the Sanhedrin, the Hashmonaim, the Hasmoneans, were still in power. And therefore there was obviously no Roman crucifixion at that time. So there are many historians, and I don't want to go into this in great depth, maybe some other time. There are many commentators and historians who believe that the myth was based on various figures, not just one, but at least two, and maybe more. And there is also evidence from the Talmud that there was another person who lived much later in the Roman period who fits the bill. But I want to say something about Yeshua ben Prachya that might help us understand why he said one of the things that he said. Yeshua ben Prachya had a disciple, and his name was Yeshua, as I mentioned, who became very rebellious, so he threw him out. He rejected him. And this man came back to the rabbi to ask him to be accepted again. He was willing to change. And the rabbi said no. He came back 2 times, and the rabbi said no. Then the rabbi said, if he comes back one more time, I'll know he's sincere, and I'll accept him. This Yeshua said, you know what, I'll try one more time. If he accepts me, fine. Otherwise, I'm going out all the way against Judaism. So he comes a 3rd time, and the rabbi was reciting the Shema. So he didn't want to interrupt, so he went like this. He raised his hand as if to say, wait a minute. And then this man took it to mean, get out. I don't want you here. So he got out, he took a brick, set it up, and declared it to be God. Bow down to it, which was a form of worship. Of course, he didn't, as a God, the rabbi, and then he started a movement, break away from Judaism. That's the story in the Talmud. And the Talmud says from this we learn a lesson that you should always use your left hand, your weaker hand, to push someone away, and your right hand to bring them close, which is a lesson in pedagogy. When you have a student and you have to give the student some discipline, never use your right hand, meaning never use your stronger techniques for disciplining and the weaker techniques for showing love, passion. On the contrary, the student should know that the teacher loves him or her and cares for him or her, but nevertheless, once in a while, you have to use a little weaker hand. That's the lesson we learn from this. And that explains why Yeshua ben Prachya, at the end of the Mishnah, the 3rd lesson, which is not what it says there. This is archaic translation. You should judge every person with a scale weighted in his favor. In other words, judge everyone favorably. Give everyone the benefit of the doubt. If this Rabbi, Yeshua, would have given this rebel the benefit of the doubt, and he wouldn't have rejected him so many times, this whole problem with his breakaway would not have occurred. So it was his lesson that he learned from his own failure, and this lesson became enshrined as one of his teachings. We don't have too many teachings from Yeshua ben Prachya. There are others in the Talmud, but it's not that many. But this is one that everyone who's familiar with Jewish tradition knows, because Ethics of the Fathers is much more popular than the rest of the Talmud, and it's recited throughout the period between Passover and Shavuos and during the summer. So this is the lesson that he teaches us: be very non-judgmental in the way you look at a person who could be doing something wrong. Maybe they're not, you don't know, but give them the benefit of the doubt and judge them. And the expression used here with a scale weighted in his favor. The scale is a metaphor for the way people are judged, that God puts your merits on one side of the scale and your demerits on the other side, and you hope that the merits outweigh the demerits. We'll always give the person that benefit of the doubt.
So, in Mister, is that only self, or is that give Mister to others, right? So, is there a right and left hand to Mister?
Well, what are you talking about? How you judge yourself?
No, when those are given, when a rabbi gives Mister to his Talmidim,
Okay.
give him the right and left hand.
Well, when a rabbi has to rebuke his students or his congregation, if he wants his contract renewed, he has to be very delicate and very. But seriously, the point is taken to describe any person who's in the position of having to judge others. So always judge them favorably. And then people will say, "We're not supposed to judge others." But are you able to stop breathing? You can't stop judging others. That's what we do every single moment of the day. When we're in contact with other people, we're always sizing them up. Friend or foe? Is this person someone I want to have a relationship with? Is this person someone I trust? We're always judging people. The question is, how do we judge them? We can't just suspend judgment, because if you suspended judgment, you would be in grave danger. You would be so vulnerable that people would take advantage of you and do things to harm you. You have to judge people based on the way they appear, but always try to judge them favorably. Let the right weigh heavier than the left. Meaning the positive judgment should be stronger than the negative judgment. One of the interpretations of this Mishnah is, it doesn't say literally judge everyone. It says kol ha'adam. Kol ha'adam could also mean the entire person. It depends how you look at a person. If you look at a person and just one layer, one slice, one dimension, that could be very negative. You have to be able to judge the entire person. There's much more to the human being than what meets the eye. And when we look at a person superficially, we may come to the wrong conclusion. So judge the entire person. And if you can judge the entire person, if you don't know the whole person, then obviously you'd have to just stop judging or give them the benefit of the doubt. Go back a little before I go more into this. Yeshua ben Prachya and Nitai Harabeli, these were the two leaders of the Sanhedrin who received the tradition from the two Yosis that we read and studied last week. Yeshua ben Prachya was the Nasi, he was the head, and Nitai Harabeli was his deputy. And they received the tradition, and these are the things that they said. First it mentions Yeshua ben Prachya. The next Mishnah will be his colleagues' teaching. And this is the three things he taught. Appoint or make for yourself a teacher. Uknei lecha chaver, acquire for yourself a chaver. In Hebrew and Yiddish, chaver is a friend, a colleague, a friend. I'll say it over here. And then judge everyone favorably. Yeshua ben Prachya seems to be giving us advice how we're supposed to relate to the past, present, and future. We have to connect to the past by having good teachers, because they are the links in the chain that bring us back to Sinai. Remember, Ethics of the Fathers begins with the tradition, how we got the Torah, started off with Moses, and then Joshua, then the prophets, and so on and so on, the elders, the prophets, the men of the great assembly, and then it keeps on going. There's an unbroken chain between us and Sinai. There's no other tradition that has this unbroken chain. But you break the chain if you don't have a teacher. If you don't have someone above you to whom you go for guidance and counsel and for knowledge, you essentially broke the chain. And that's why the Torah was originally designed to be an oral Torah. Only part of it was written, the Bible, as they call it, but the rest of it, which then became the works of the Talmud, were originally intended to be oral, and they continue to be oral even though they're written down in the Talmud. You need a teacher. Why is that? Because one of the reasons given for that is that if you didn't have a teacher, then there would be no chain, and then you would lose all the nuances, all the between the lines that are transmitted orally from teacher to student. So you have to have a teacher. You have to go to someone above you. And even if you think you're the top person, you need someone else to go to for counsel and advice, because you can't be fully objective. You need someone who has a higher perspective, because that person is either more experienced than you, more knowledgeable, or at least more detached from the situation so they can be more objective. And the term over here, it's asay. Asay means make, but it also has the connotation in the Talmud, force him to become your teacher. That a rabbi has no right to turn someone down. If someone says, "Rabbi, teach me the whole Torah," standing on one foot,
Which foot?
that's right, that's what your response should be. Which foot? The rabbi has no right to turn someone down. Obviously, you can't just take him away while he's teaching one person and say, "No, you have to teach me." It has to be within reason. But you can tell the person, "Rabbi, I'm not going to pay you, but you have an obligation to teach. You're not teaching anyone else right now. Teach me." But then, it's not enough to have a teacher. Uknei lecha chaver. You have to appoint a friend. You have to acquire, rather. I'm sorry, it's the teacher is the appointing. The friend is acquiring. What does that mean, to acquire? You can't just go over to a person that says, "I want you to be my friend. I want you to be my colleague." You have to ingratiate yourself to that person. You have to purchase that role. You have to give him an incentive why he would want to be your friend. You have to show friendship to him or her, in whichever case it may be.
What is meant by a friend?
Someone who cares about you, who knows your problems, in whom you will confide some of the most private matters of your life and problems.
How does this differ from your husband or wife?
It doesn't differ, but you can't just have a husband and a wife. You have to have an outside person in addition, right?
Why?
Because a husband and wife, the Talmud says, is like one person. Ishto kegufo, your wife is just like yourself. And in the laws of testimony, obviously you can't testify against a relative, but that's called invalid testimony. If you testify against your wife, it's not called testimony, because it's like speaking against yourself, and in Jewish law there's no such thing as self-incrimination. You can't confess a crime in Judaism. You could try, but it won't work.
So is the purpose to have someone who will be more objective?
Right.
You and telling you?
When you say you have your wife, it means my right hand has my left hand, but it's not good enough. If I have to pick up a load that weighs 5,000 pounds, my left hand isn't enough. I have to get a truck. Right.
You could do, but you cannot have a relative.
to sign. No, a relative cannot be a witness. But a spouse not only can't be a witness, is not considered to be an invalid witness even. It's like yourself. It's like testifying about yourself, which you can do. But the point is that you need an outside person, because the outside person, on one hand, is an outsider, objective. On the other hand, that person has to become, chaver comes from the term chibur, attached to you, to the point where they feel your pain, they know your problems as intimately as you know them. They become so close to you. So most people, someone asked the Rebbe, why is it that his Hasidim are so devoted to him? So he said, because I'm their friend. So the guy says, friend? Big deal. So the Rebbe says, do you know what a friend is? Yeah, I have a lot of friends. No, you don't. So it's someone who you care about, who cares about you, who's like, it's like an extension of yourself. And he went on and on describing it. He says, do you have any friends like that? Well, maybe one, maybe not even one. He says, well, I'm a friend to all of these people. And that's how they... What?
What about with an adult child? Can they be a friend as well?
Again, you're too close to them. It's too close to be considered to be, even though they're not as close as a spouse in one sense, they are close in another way. They're biologically connected, and there's a certain power that has. You have to get someone on the outside to become an insider. Grandchildren are perfect, so they can't see. They won't understand if you tell them you have problems. They said, "What's a problem?" Yes.
You're saying that there's no concept of self-incrimination? When you go to the base team, they can't say, "Did you do X, Y, or Z?" And you say, "And you know that," you can't say that.
Well, it depends. I don't want to get off the subject, but it depends. If it's a financial matter, you could, because you could obligate yourself to give money to someone. So you could, if you confess, if I said when you weren't looking, I pickpocketed you, I took out $100 from your wallet. Well, even whether it's true or not, it's irrelevant. I just obligated myself to give you $100. But if it's a criminal matter, it would not be considered a valid testimony. You cannot.
I did steal it.
If I say I robbed the bank and I got $10,000, I owe the bank $10,000, but I go scot-free. I'm not a thief because I can't incriminate myself in Jewish law. But that's a subject for another discussion. So the third thing is, so the first teaching is about your connection to the generation before you. The second teaching is the connection to your peers, people of your own generation, that's the reason why you can't just rely on a teacher. A teacher belongs to another generation, and as much as older people think they understand the younger generation, and they certainly have certain perspective that only they can give, they're not part of the younger generation. We shouldn't delude ourselves. We're not the same as our kids and as our grandkids. We're a different generation. So the person needs to have an objective judge and a friend who is a peer, someone who grew up like you in the same time period, has the same challenges most likely. And that person could be, in one way, more helpful than a teacher, because we're not going to share some of our deepest, intimate secrets with a teacher as easily as we would with a real friend, someone who we are so close with that we'll share anything with them. But it's not enough to have a solid relationship with your teachers, with the earlier generation, with your generation. You have to have a right approach to your students. How do you get students? How do you get people? When I say student, I don't mean in a formal sense, academic sense. Anyone who is willing and should be listening to your way of life. You have something to impart to them. We have an obligation. We have to impart our knowledge, our experiences to the next generation. We can't just say, well, let them go be on their own. They need teachers. How can we be teachers if we're so judgmental? And this is something that we all probably are guilty of. We all try to mold the next generation in our own image, because that's human. That's what human beings want to do. I know that my way of life, I know what's right, I know what's wrong, I may not be perfect, but I can tell others how to be perfect, but it may not work for them. You have to give them their space, as they would put it in modern times. Judge them favorably. Don't judge them by your own standards. Now, of course, everything has to be taken, can't go to extremes, that if your child becomes a drug addict, well, that's that new generation, and we shouldn't get involved. We're not talking about things like that. But attitudes and changes with generations, and every generation complains that the new generation is not like it used to be. Everyone complains about that. We really mean it. By us, it's really true, but everyone makes the same complaint. Now, why should you judge everyone favorably? So the reason for that is, number one, it's a good idea if you want to have friends and you want to have people listening to you, you have to be non-judgmental, or I don't like the word non-judgmental because it's a misnomer. Everyone is judgmental. We should judge behavior, not people. If I see someone doing something wrong, if a child is doing something wrong, we shouldn't say to the child, "You're a bad child." But we shouldn't do that to an adult either. We should say, what you're doing is wrong. What you're doing is not consistent with whom you are. You are a very special person. You have godly talents. Why are you doing something that is inconsistent? That's not who you are. That doesn't define you. So therefore, you should change your behavior. So we do judge behavior, but we don't judge people because of the behavior. And I'm not talking about extremes. If you want to judge Hitler or Stalin or Yasser Arafat, all these most evil people, you could judge them. You can be sure that wherever they are, they're not going to be let off the hook. But we're talking about normal people. Judge people favorably, even if you have to judge their behavior unfavorably, because it's objective. There are certain objective truths that it's wrong to lie, to steal, to cheat, to hurt other people, and to do other things that are against the Torah. So you could judge the behavior, but not the person. Again, why should we judge people favorably? Because it works. It's a good idea. Number two, we're taught, and commentaries point this out, that when we judge other people favorably, God judges us favorably. It says that God doesn't judge a person unless you agree to the judgment. So how does He get us to agree? He sees how we behave. So if we thought it's good to judge people unfavorably, God says, you said yourself it's all right to judge people unfavorably, I'll do the same thing. So it's always a very good idea to judge people favorably. But there's another point. When you judge someone favorably, what you're doing actually is helping that person unleash their spiritual positive energies. This is a basic belief and concept in Torah, especially in Hasidic teachings, that we all have positive, innate qualities. That is who we are. That's the deepest part of our being. Yes, we also have negative traits beneath the surface. But what's the deepest part of our personality? The good, the godly. Above that, you have negative traits that can be very powerful and very deeply rooted, but not as deeply rooted as the good. And then you have the surface, the conscious behavior of a person. Now, what happens when you judge someone favorably is you are creating and generating an energy that brings out the resources, the positive resources that are very deeply embedded and don't surface. Sometimes people, because of circumstances, because of the upbringing they had or the lack of upbringing, their goodness never was given an opportunity to manifest itself. They never had an opportunity to do good. So by judging them favorably, you are actually excavating the turf of their personality and finding the treasures beneath. Someone once asked the Rebbe if he agrees with Freud, who says that what motivates people is the libido, and that's the basis for human action and behavior. So the Rebbe said that when you dig into the dirt, into the ground, you'll find dirt. But if you dig deeper, you'll find treasures. What Freud did is he dug beneath the surface and he found certain things that are very much not consistent with the holiness and the godliness of the soul. But if you start digging deeper, you'll find that. And there was actually a psychologist who did dig deeper, Frankl, who wrote the book Man in the Search of Meaning, who discovered from his own experiences in the Holocaust that what really motivates people is not power, not libido, but it's the desire to find meaning in life. So if you dig deep, you'll find that, and you'll find deeper and deeper things. How do you dig into someone when you give them positive reinforcement, positive praise, judging them favorably? Now this idea of judging people favorably, there are some very beautiful stories that illustrate the extent to which this can be taken. There's a story in the Talmud of a certain man who was a poor man. He went from the north, he lived in the north of Israel, he went south to work in a certain rich person's home for 3 years. He didn't go home for 3 years, and then he amassed quite a nice fortune. And now he goes to his employer, he says, can you give me the money? I'm going home now. The man says, I don't have any money. Oh, can you give me some cattle? I don't have any cattle. Can I give me some land? I don't have any land. Clothing? I have no clothing. I have nothing. And he left and he went home penniless. A few days later, the man arrives with wagon loads of stuff to pay him and compensate him very, very richly. So the man said to this poor worker, he said, what did you think when I told you I had no money? He says, I thought you probably invested the money. You didn't have any money available. When I told you I didn't have any animals, maybe you lent it to someone to work in their field. And every little thing, he said, well, when I said I had nothing to give you, what did you think? I thought that maybe you were in a very spiritually motivated mood, and you donated everything you own to the temple. And he says, yes, that's exactly what happened. And then, the reason why I donated everything, because I have a son, his name is Hyrcanus, and he wasn't studying Torah, so I thought if I give away all my wealth to the temple, that will motivate him to learn. But then I realized that I had nothing left for myself. I went to the rabbis, and they annulled my vow. And that's why I'm bringing you all the material. And he blessed him for judging him favorably. Who was this poor worker? A man by the name of Akiva. Rabbi Akiva. That was his trait. The way he judged someone favorably. How many of us would have said the same thing? You thief, you owe me the money. Then there's another story, more contemporary story. This happened about 150 years ago. The leader of Austro-Hungarian Jewry was the Chassam Sofer. That's how he was known. His son wrote a book called Kisav Sofer, the writing of the scribe, who was an equally giant scholar and leader. And he once had a convention in his hometown of all the leading rabbis of the Austro-Hungarian Empire to discuss issues of relevance to the Jewish community. At the end of the sessions, of a few days of sessions, there was a banquet, and he said, I want to give you a treat. He took out a coin, an ancient coin, and he says, this is an heirloom. I inherited this from my father, who got it from his father, going back who knows how many centuries. And there's no other coin like this. And I'm going to let you all look at this coin and handle it. So the coin gets passed around, and then after a few minutes, the rabbi says, well, where's the coin? Disappeared. So the rabbi said, could everyone search on the table to see where it is? And they searched, no coin. So the rabbi said, well, I don't suspect anyone, but we're going to have to all come clean, so everyone should empty out their pockets. And one older rabbi in the back raised his hand. He says, why do we have to be so hasty in doing this? Let's search a little better, a little more. So people are rolling their eyes now, why is this rabbi so nervous? So they search again and they can't find it. So the host says, well, everyone's going to have to empty out their pockets. And this older rabbi says, please, let's search a little better. Maybe we'll find it. And everyone now is looking at him with a dirty look. And they search and they search and they can't find it. So the rabbi says, okay, that's it. Enough delay. Everyone's going to have to empty out their pockets. As he said that, someone came running from the kitchen. They found the coin in one of the plates that was taken out after the meal was over, to everyone's relief. But then this older rabbi says, can I speak for a few minutes? And he gets up there and he takes out a coin that was identical to that one. Says, you thought you were the only one who had that heirloom. I also have this heirloom from my family going back centuries, and I had the identical coin. And I didn't want to take it out before because I didn't want to take away the limelight from you, so I kept it in my pocket. Now, how many of you judge me favorably and assumed that I did not steal it? If I would have emptied out my pockets, whoever judged me favorably before would have definitely concluded that I was the thief. What are the odds that I wouldn't have been the thief? So that's the lesson of never be too hasty in judging other people. There's famous stories of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev. He was the master of seeing the good in everyone. The famous story is when he saw a Jew in his talis and tefillin greasing the wheels of his wagon. Most people would have said the chutzpah, the nerve, you to take your talis and tefillin and to have such disrespect for it and greasing the wheels with dirty grease. Instead, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak turns to God and says, look how wonderful your children are. Even when they're working, they daven. Even when they're working, they pray. He had a way of turning everything around. And there was once a man who died, a miser, known as the biggest miser in town, and the Chevra Kadisha, the burial society, didn't want to pay for his funeral. They said, why should we pay for this man? This man was a horrible person. And the rabbi, when he heard this, he ordered them to pay for it, and he says, I'm coming to the funeral personally. And the rabbi didn't go to every funeral in town. And when the rabbi went, everyone else joined. And then later on, people asked him, why did you make such a fuss about this man? He was a horrible person. He says, because I had 3 court cases. I was the judge in 3 cases, and he won all 3 cases. One of the cases was a merchant who had money from various other merchants to invest in buying merchandise, discovered that all his money was gone. He had lost his wallet, and all the money, not only his own money, but money that belonged to other people. And the man fainted. And they could try to revive him, and his life was in danger. And this rich man, this so-called miser, when he heard about it, said he found the money. And he gave the money to this person, and the person's life was saved. Later on, this man discovered that it was someone else who stole the money, and this man had pangs of guilt, and he came back to repay the money that he had stolen. So when the man realized that the money that he got from the miser was not really the money that was stolen from him, he went to the miser and he says, I have to repay you. And the so-called miser says, I refuse to take any money. I did a mitzvah, I saved a life, I'm not taking any money. So they went to the rabbi for a court case. Doesn't happen too often in local courts that the miser says, I'm not going to take any money. The one says, no, I want you to, I insist. And the rabbi ruled in favor of the miser, that he doesn't have to take the money. There was one case. Another case was a very poor man was forced to leave town to try to find some way of earning a living, because he couldn't earn a living in his own hometown. So his wife said to him, what am I going to do now? At least you made something here, but now you're going to be gone. I'm going to die of starvation. So he said, you know that man, that rich man, he's sending me on a business trip, so he promised that he will support you. Just go to his house every Friday and he'll give you money for the week. And he made that was a Baba Maisa. He made up that story. So she goes to the rich man's business, and they ask, what do you want? He says, I'm here to collect my money, my weekly stipend. He says, what weekly stipend? And they want to throw her out. And she made a big commotion, so the miser comes out of his office, and he says, what's going on? And she tells him the story. He says, yes, I made that commitment, and he supported her for many, many months. When the husband came back home and he had money now, he discovered that his wife didn't have to go begging. She got a very respectable stipend every week. So he wanted to repay the miser, and the miser refused, and again, he won the case. And the third case was someone who borrowed money, came to the miser to borrow money, and the miser said to him, well, how are you going to repay me? I need a guarantor. He says, God is my guarantor. He says, okay, if God's your guarantor, I trust you. And the man came back months later to repay the debt, and he says, I refuse to take it. He says, why? Because I already got paid. What do you mean he got paid? You made God the guarantor. He already repaid me. I made my money back, so why should I collect twice? And again, he took it to the rabbi for a court case, and he won the case again. For a man like this, he deserves to have everyone come to his funeral. So most people would have not given this person the benefit of the doubt. But that's how extreme one should go, which is very, very difficult as a challenge. But Pirkei Avos is about going beyond the norm. Well, if the man was known as a miser, it's because he kept his charity, whatever he gave, secret. He didn't tell anybody. He didn't go around bragging that I helped these 3 people and I refuse to take any money. So,
listed as anonymous in the lists.
Right, yeah, right.
Right. He didn't mind that people badmouth him, which is a separate issue, because according to Jewish law, you're not supposed to put yourself in a position where people will judge you unfavorably. You should always come clean. When the 2.5 tribes, the 2 tribes came to Moses and they said that we want to stay here, we don't want to cross the Jordan. So Moses rebuked them, and from there we derive that, and then they defended themselves, that we didn't mean we're not going to go fight with everyone else, but that's where the principle of you always have to, establish your reputation and not allow people to suspect you of doing something wrong. Although there's one story that contradicts that. It's the story of Reb Zusha. Reb Zusha was a colleague of Reb Levi Yitzchak, and in many ways he was similar. A very poor man, and his daughter was now of marriageable age, and he had no money to marry her off. So he comes to his Rebbe, the Maggid of Mizrich. They both lived in the same town, Anipoli. And the Maggid of Mizrich opens up his drawer, takes out 200 rubles, or whatever the denomination was, and he says, this is for you to marry off your daughter. And Zusha takes the money, and he goes out, and then he sees a commotion. What was wrong? A businessman who had returned from his business trip, had lost his wallet, lost his money, and he fainted. And whenever they revive him, he faints again, and his life is in danger. So Reb Zusha says, well, how much did he lose? 200 rubles. He says, well, I found it. And he gives him 190 rubles. And the man is revived, and the man says, 1 second, there was 200. You obviously kept 10 for yourself. And Zusha says, no, I'm only giving you 190. So they call the police, and they're taking him away to prison. Meanwhile, there's like a whole long procession. Everyone's following him. And the Maggid of Mizrich looks out his window, and he sees this procession with Zusha in handcuffs behind the police. So he goes out and he asks what's going on, and they tell him what happened. So he takes out 10 rubles and he gives it to them, and they let him go. So he calls them in and he says, Zusha, I understand that you took the money I gave you for your own needs and you gave it to save that person's life. I understand that. He said, but why didn't you give the full 200? He says, you mean, and then people will call me a hero? I wanted to do the mitzvah and people will call me a thief. Which is a little bit different than the words, V'hiyisem nikiyim, you should always be clean before God and other people. But that's not a standard way of doing things, what Reb Zusha did. A mitzvah getan and a ganav geblieben. That was his expression. A mitzvah was done, and a thief I remain. In the eyes of people, I was just no better than a common thief.
Religion is religion, business is business.
Right.